Okay, so first off, regarding fracking, we did provide you with copies of 3 letters on the subject, one by a group of California legislators. We got a separate letter from Assemblymember Richard Bloom, and another one by the Center for Biological Diversity, Surfrider, and the Environmental Defense Center. So you should have those. So what I'm going to do today is give you a very preliminary report. I agree with the requests made in the letters that you received that we need to launch an investigation of offshore fracking done here in California. We do not yet understand, the extent of fracking in federal and state waters, nor fully understand its risks. And there's also some tricky legal issues here that we need to fully vet before deciding on next steps. And we are beginning that research now, and I certainly intend to report back to you at a later meeting. But today, I can provide you with a bit of background and try to address the question, how did we not know that this was happening offshore California? So first, what is fracking? So hydraulic fracking it's a method of well stimulation that involves injecting water mixed with sand and chemicals at high pressures to break up rock formations to release oil and gas. Advances in fracking technology have made oil and gas reserves more accessible. Now, well fracking is not new. It's a well completion extraction method that has been used for about 60 years to enhance oil and gas production. So the fracking that you and we have, heard much about in recent media accounts occurs onshore, oftentimes in combination with new advances in extended reach drilling technology. Drills can now travel laterally from drill sites, sometimes miles, allowing a single drill site to cover vastly more area. The combination of horizontal drilling and fracking puts all kind of previously inaccessible fossil fuels within reach. So there's been a real boom in this activity, especially in the Midwest and in states like New York, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. And here in California, fracking is occurring most frequently within the Central Valley. We know that there can be significant environmental issues associated with onshore fracking. What has received the most attention is fouling of groundwater, contamination of drinking water supplies, and a lack of adequate treatment of large quantities of wastewater. This wastewater can be laced with highly corrosive salts and heavy metals, all of which can occur naturally underground, and that can also then include the chemicals that are used in the fracking itself. And there's been a tremendous amount of frustration because chemical producers do not want to disclose what chemicals are in fracking fluids and at what concentrations, claiming that the chemicals qualify as trade secrets. And just very recently, we learned that fracking has occurred in wells offshore California. So why did we not know that fracking occurs offshore? It's a bit complicated, so let me divide up a little bit about state waters versus federal waters. So in state waters, we currently have 4 platforms and 5 oil and gas producing islands that have been there for a very, very long time. Today I do not know how many wells have been fracked. However, it is my understanding that there is a well completion process that uses what's called a frack pack, or what's referred to as a mini frack, that has been used on some of older wells that are in the Long Beach and Huntington Beach area. Now, to the best of my knowledge, I believe that individual well drilling plans are approved by the Division of Oil and Gas and Geothermal Resources. It's the agency that people refer to as DOGGR. Now, these plans, as I understand it, are reviewed and administratively approved. We haven't been notified of these over the years. No operator has applied for a coastal development permit. And we need to understand better ourselves what these types of well enhancement practices are to better assess whether we believe that it constitutes development under the Coastal Act. So moving to federal waters, there are 23 platforms out there that have approved development plans, what are called Outer Continental Shelf plans, or OCS plans. And these are approved by the federal government. And those plans approve, among other activities, drilling from these platforms. And so, and of those 23, 13 of those were approved by the Coastal Commission, okay, under our Federal Consistency Review Authority. So the federal agency that's called the Bureau of Safety and Environmental Enforcement, what's known as BSEE, and this was part of the former Minerals Management Service, must approve, well completion plans. These may constitute revisions to these OCS plans, but it's our understanding today, and again I need to confirm this, is that BSEE has been approving these individual well plans as a minor revision to these OCS plans. Okay. Now, our federal consistency regulations require BSEE to submit to the Coastal Commission for our review under a Federal Consistency Authority major revisions to OCS plans. So that's why we haven't been seeing these. Now, what I've been told is that there have been 12 individual wells that have done some form of fracking in federal waters in the past 25 years, and that one has been approved at Platform Gilda, but that work has not yet commenced. And then currently I wanted to report to you too that in the state legislature, Senator Pavley has introduced a bill, SB4, that I believe Charles mentioned to you yesterday, that would amend various sections of the Public Resources Code relating to oil and gas to accomplish a number of things related to fracking of wells within the state's jurisdiction. And if enacted, SB4 would require the Secretary of Natural Resources to conduct and complete by January 2015 a comprehensive study on fracking, including potential risks to the environment and public health and safety. It would require DOGGR to adopt regulations on fracking for the purpose of giving DOGGR permit authority over well fracking. The bill would require well operators to provide DOGGR with a complete inventory of the chemical components and their relative ratios as part of this permit process, regardless of whether those chemical compounds are regarded as trade secrets. That information would be disclosed to the public after a period of 60 days unless an operator or a supplier claims that the compounds are protected as a trade secret based on criteria included in the bill. If DOGGR agrees that the compounds qualify as a trade secret, the chemicals would still be publicly disclosed, but not in their proprietary formulations. And DOGGR could share this proprietary information with other agencies, but all agencies would be required to keep this information confidential. Now, Sarah Christie is monitoring the bill as it works its way through the legislative session. We've discussed this bill internally along with legal staff and determined that the bill does not in any way limit any existing authority that the Coastal Commission might have to regulate fracking associated activities in the coastal zone or through our Federal Consistency Review Authority in federal waters. So next steps for staff here is that we want to do some fact finding and come back to you later. We're starting to investigate where and when in federal and state waters wells have been fracked. What are the differences, if any, between onshore and offshore fracking? What I've been told is that what has occurred offshore is much smaller in scale, lesser volume of water, chemicals, and lesser pressure. We'll look at what are the risks of fracking and what authorities do others and we have to regulate fracking. Now, as a starting point, for new oil and gas drilling projects, we are now asking an applicant if they propose to undertake well fracking. And if so, then we're asking for that an analysis of the environmental effects of such activities be provided. And then I'm also looking to set up a multi-agency meeting soon that would include the relevant federal and state agencies. And so after we have this meeting, we do this research, we'd like to come back to you with a more detailed briefing about what we've learned and maybe some recommendations. And with that, I'll close unless Charles wants to add some additional comments.
Yes, Madam Chair and Commissioner, I just wanted to thank Allison for the quick turnaround on a report that I think gives you a good feel of the complexity of this issue, and we will be coming back to you after we do some more fact-finding, but also assure you that we take our obligation to protect the marine environment very seriously, and we're going to be looking at this very carefully. You have a long tradition of looking at offshore issues and offshore oil and gas development very carefully, and as Allison summarized, have been involved in that process for a long time now in a number of different ways. So just wanted to give you this opportunity to hear what we know now, and again, we'll be coming back to you as soon as we have more to report.